Please welcome to the stage Dr. David Park and Steve Spears.
Good afternoon. Well, I have to start with an absolute sincere moment of gratitude to everybody in this room. I am so excited about this meeting, but I'm even more excited that we're here in this room physically meeting together. So thank you. We know that it's a lot to get to this meeting in these circumstances, and we sincerely appreciate it. I was reflecting last week on how we got to where we are today with Eyecelerator, and I was going back through some notes, and it was November of 2018, and I had been with ASCRS for about 6 months, and David had really been tremendously kind and generous to me with his time, because there's not a lot of people to talk to when you step into a role like that. And so we were having one of our monthly chats about, ways that we could work together. And he asked me the question, Steve, having come from industry, and he had just been in, I think at that one, that was Chicago, the 2018 meeting. He said, are the societies doing everything that they can to foster and support innovation? And, if you had looked at the list of things we had talked about, you would not have expected that would have come up on our topic list. And I thought about it for a second, and I said, you know what? It's a very fair question, and if I'm completely honest, I don't know that if the question is, have we done everything? The answer is, I think, no. And that started this dialogue of how could we work together to do more, to collaborate and foster and nurture innovation. And one thing led to another, and now here we are with our very first live in-person Eyecelerator meeting, a little bit behind our original schedule, but we're happy to be here. One of the things that was discussed is what's the definition of success in terms of this meeting? Is it the number of people in the room? Is it the number of early exits and multiples? And none of those things are the case. The ultimate things are probably the same concerns of most people who are out there trying to start up a new technology, and that is really what the ultimate benefit to the patient is. And I can tell you that one of the things that I appreciate about the connection that we've had is David and I, we go back, we started our relationship when I was in industry and he was in medicine. He was, if you didn't know this, he was a badass retina surgeon, but long before he was a CEO. And we work together collaboratively, and I like that we've been able to continue that dialogue, and I think that hopefully what you'll see, not maybe today, not in 6 months, but over the coming years, is that there's a real impact from the two societies choosing to join together and work collaboratively, bringing innovation farther along. So again, thank you very much. And I have to say a quick word. I cannot say enough good things about this gentleman to my left. David has been so supportive, so patient. It's been a tough 16 months or so for all of us, and it certainly was for ASCRS, and I'm certainly thankful and appreciative that I had David Park to sort of help me along the way. So thank you, David.
Yeah. Thank you, Steve. For those of you in the audience that don't know Steve, I think you can sense, his passion, his commitment for what we all do, but also that he is one of the most humble and gracious individuals you'll ever meet. And it's something like I always used to, tell my kids, my residents, my fellows, is, throughout the course of your career, your relationship with people changes. Their job changes. You all experience this all the time, and as they move from one spot to another. And as Steve said, we've gone from playing around with devices to work in the back of the eye now to having to deal with a pandemic. But I would like to echo, first of all, I'll just say everything he said, but in particular to welcome to what is now the largest in-person innovation meeting in ophthalmology since the start of the pandemic. Who would have thought back in February of 2020 that we all would go a year and a half effectively isolated. And the exciting new drugs, the devices that we'll be discussing today, really prove that all the bright minds in industry and academia and the research labs and commercial space really kept going throughout the pandemic to advance our field and ultimately the gifts that we can give the physicians and most importantly the patients. And I'll be speaking a little bit in greater detail at the ASCRS opening session about how the pandemic affected ophthalmology. But looking back on it, we went from having 10,000 confirmed cases in the United States to 600,000 confirmed cases in 17 days. And the speed of this, I think, took us all by surprise. But suffice it to say that the professional world of ophthalmology and vision science was totally turned upside down during that period of time. And we then shut down and then opened up with an entirely new set of patient expectations, care mechanisms, delivery structures, et cetera. But despite all that, we're back. And it is so cool to be able to say that. We're vaccinated, and we know that the odds are so tremendously in our favor that if we do get COVID, it's going to be asymptomatic or it's going to be mild, and we know we can't shut down forever. So by being here, we've all voted with our feet. And we've said that the value of in-person contacts and of collegial interchange really outweighs the risk. We believe in science, we believe in discovery, and in moving forward, all I can say to you all is congratulations we've made this through this. And we're now really looking forward to where we're going to take the future. It's a different future. We're not going back to the way we were before, but we're doing it for our profession, for science, and for our patients. And so, like Steve, I thank you all for being here. Thank you for the opportunity to say a few words, and I'll turn things back to Steve.
So this is a joint venture of the American Academy of Ophthalmology, the American Society of Cataract and Refractive Surgery, but we also have a third partner, and he has been instrumental in helping get us through this virtual period that we went through, and now here we're where we are today. So we'd like you to welcome out to the stage Dr. Gil Kleiman, who is the managing partner of InterWest Partners.
Thank you, Steve and David, for that very nice introduction and intro, and thank you all for coming out here physically for an amazing meeting. And as David and Steve said, we never thought that we would go through what we went through, and it's amazing how we came out of it. And for me, it's really been an amazing experience being partners with these two gentlemen, where I'm a partner at InterWest Partners, a venture capital firm in Silicon Valley. It's my day job. And I've been a partner there for 20 years, and we learned something about partnership, that you really learn the most about your partners in the bad times, not in the good times. And we started out with some good times and then went through some bad times. And I have to say, this is probably the best partnership I've ever had with Steve and David, and it's incredible what we've been able to create together through some good times, bad times, and now hopefully some good times again. And thank you for the audience for taking the risk on us of coming here for what really is a waking up from what has been a very long year and a half. I was reflecting, I'm a little rusty on having physical meetings here. I've been on Zoom for the last physical meeting I was at was in February of 2020 at an ACOS meeting. And it's great to be back. The problem is I can't turn the video off if I do anything wrong up here. And the good news is I don't hear any barking dogs or doorbells or anything. And I see everyone is dressed below the waist. So thank you very much for doing that. So we're back in the physical world, and what I'd like to do is take you on a little journey about Eyecelerator and what we've done in the past and hopefully what we're going to be doing in the future. I would like to especially thank Steve for getting us to Vegas. And if we could advance this slide, it's not quite moving. Thank you. If any of you know the Katy Perry song, it's all about not remembering what you did in Vegas. Hopefully we're waking up in Vegas and this will be a very memorable time. But it was very hard for Steve to find a venue, and we went through some different venues, and I'm very glad we ended up in Vegas, because we could have been some other places, or Lake Havasu City, or who knows what. So it's a good place to be. We're here. And now I'd like to take you through a little bit of how we thought about this partnership, and then what some of our mission is about it. And it is a very unique joint venture that I don't think there really is in any medical specialty, a time when two big societies have come together to do something like this as a joint project. And it started back in November of 2019, as I think Steve and David mentioned, and we really had a pretty specific mission, of which the most important thing is to try to advance innovation faster so that we can get better treatments to patients. Innovation really isn't relevant unless it's going to yield some results that hopefully can eventually get into a marketplace and get to patients. So that's really our highest priority. We're going to be looking at all kinds of different technologies and approaches, but that's the ultimate goal. It's really not primarily financial, to produce a financial return, but to produce a clinical and commercial return where we're really impacting the ophthalmology marketplace. As part of that, one of our core values is really to have a very diverse community. I think we all know innovation requires diversity and people coming from all different types of backgrounds in order to do it the best. And we're trying to create a culture and a community around that. We also are really trying to provide value to a very wide spectrum of constituents, everyone from entrepreneurs, big companies, small companies, clinicians, academicians. We want to really serve the whole constituency of innovation. Now, that being said, although we are really backed by clinical societies, it would be a misconception that this would be a clinically based meeting or academic in some way. That's a part of it. But it really is a business meeting, and that continues to be our focus. And the breakdown of our current registrants shows you that. Actually, our number's a little higher than this. This was from last week, so we have over 500 registrants here. The vast majority, as you can see on this slide, are coming from the large and small companies. The biggest slice by far is 46% are from the innovators and the small companies, and more than 3/4 are from large and small companies combined. We'd like to grow the other slices of the pie, and we have 12% clinicians here. We'd like to make the program broad enough that they could learn about innovations long before they're FDA approved and come to market, because we think that could speed up the adoption of very good technologies. There's a small slice here of 6% for finance, of which I'm in that slice, but I point out we're also trying to grow that. I'm sorry, it's 4%. We'd like to grow that, but although it's a small number of people, back of the envelope, that's $5 to $10 billion that's in the audience to fund. So the concentration of capital is in a very small number of people in finance, but we still are trying to have our program bring in more people from finance to help both the large and small companies to move forward their different projects. Another point I'd like to make, and this might be the most important slide in my slide deck, is we're really trying to put resources on innovations that can be both clinically and commercially successful. If an innovation isn't clinically successful, never gets FDA approved, it probably isn't going to benefit many people. Some innovations may produce a financial return, but never really get to the marketplace and become successful commercial products. So we're trying to see where the Venn diagrams overlap, where we can have innovations that are successful for investors, because that's a sine qua non of any business model, but where ultimately they are able to be FDA approved and commercially succeed in the marketplace, so they can either be freestanding companies or they can be in the product portfolio of the large companies and be very meaningful. And I've put up just a few companies here which I've been very blessed to be involved with personally on the board of all these companies except for Spark, and investing in all of these different sectors. And these are just meant to be examples of companies that were able to succeed both clinically and commercially. So they developed large product streams, 50 to 100 million, sometimes more, that could have a big impact on the marketplace. And they're across all different parts of ophthalmology. One of them, the biggest one of all, is actually Doximity, which is a digital health company. And I mention that because that's something else at this meeting I think we will be highlighting over time, is digital health is becoming a very large area outside of ophthalmology, and we hope to bring in some of the models of success for that to have a bigger impact within ophthalmology. Now, we set out to do all this in a more traditional way of having 2 large meetings before each of the societies. and we had a great meeting planned in Boston and Las Vegas last year. And we thought we might be able to engage based on previous innovation meetings we'd looked at. Maybe we'd engage with 500, 600 people per meeting and be able to make a good impact that way. Unfortunately, the world then closed, both literally and figuratively, and our whole plans were out the window, which isn't unusual being a startup. Not many startups execute their original business plan, so we're entrepreneurs. We had to start over. What are we going to do? We could have given up. We could have put things on hold. We decided to lean in, and the other thing I'd like to say for David and Steve, there was not a moment of hesitation. We knew we had to do something different, and we pivoted into virtual programming, which now we all take for granted, but in April of 2020, we were really the first innovation-oriented meeting to do anything virtual, and we did a very intensive number of programs through April and then through the year that many of you participated in. And the ability of people to participate in those far exceeded our expectations, and so we learned the virtual medium could be a very powerful way to actually expand the innovation community beyond physical meetings. So we ended up, after a year essentially of virtual programming, with a very large, over 5,600, actually at this meeting it's now over 6,000 people that have attended our meetings. And we're making a transition from virtual to physical, of which this obviously is the keynote, kickoff being the first big physical meeting. And during the course of all this, we really are very proud with the incredible resources that have been put on this, that we really feel that we've established a leadership role in ophthalmology innovation, and we hope to continue to expand that as we go forward into our 2021 programs. None of this would have been possible without the early sponsorship from so many people. And we have very large sponsors down to small sponsors, but I'd like to call out our largest sponsors who really make the meeting work, from the highest level of our 6 top-level Palladium sponsors. And particularly for Alcon, Allergan, J&J, and Star Surgical. They were our very first top-level sponsors. And again, we met with them when the pandemic started. And again, there wasn't a moment of hesitation to proceed forward and continue with the meeting. And that really allowed us to expand our sponsorship base dramatically to where we have really most of the companies in industry are involved in the meeting. And thank you all for the incredible support from high to low across the board in sponsorship. All of this is done by a cast of thousands. It's an incredible team. It's actually the largest team I've ever worked with. We have a multidisciplinary team drawn from AAO, ASCRS, our firm Interwest, and producers at Avenue Live. And this team not only was set up to produce the physical meetings, they all pivoted into virtual meetings and then were able to produce high quality content, both in virtual and now coming back to physical. And here I'd like to give a special call out to Krista Parker from ASCRS and Deb Rosenkrantz at AAO, who run their teams, and they've just done a flawless job of executing in some of the most difficult environments we've seen for really conference and virtual programming execution. So we'll continue to really rely on this incredible group that we have behind us. Now, we talked about coming out of virtual and coming back towards physicality, and really this is something that's gone on since antiquity, that physicality is important for innovation. This is just a very interesting painting. It's at the Vatican by Raphael in the Renaissance, looking at a meeting in antiquity called the School of Athens, where all the philosophers and scientists met physically to exchange ideas. And in this painting is actually a picture of Archimedes with a little diagram where he's selling his principle on somebody else in the picture. So the roots of innovation go all the way back to this sort of physical gathering, which is what we're trying to do with you all here today. But there needs to be a responsible return, and that's part of the reason we're looking at how we will transition is, and we want to thank you all today for working with. We're in a very transitional period now where we're moving from no masks to maybe some masks, and we will continue to try to provide physicality within the context of what's working well based on what is happening with the pandemic, which hopefully by the time we get to our next big meeting, which would be in New Orleans, is much more in the rearview mirror than we even have today. So we need to get physical and do it the right way. Our art department really didn't do too well on this one. It's not the right vibe for me. We're getting closer, but I think this really tells you this is how we're going to get physical. So we've got 2 of the best co-chairmen that I've ever worked with, Jim Mazo and Eric Donenfeld. They're going to be running the rest of the meeting. And I'd like to bring out Jim and Eric, my favorite co-chairs, to take on the meeting from here. And let's get going and get physical. Eric and Eric.
Thanks, Gil. Great entry. Welcome, all of you. It's nice to be here. You know, I've lived through hundreds of Zoom meetings, and these virtual meetings have been wonderful, but the luster is just worn off. And seeing all of you here today makes me think that the world is just a little better place today, and all being here together just makes me feel that we're back to normal again, and I just feel better about ophthalmology. I feel better about life. To go back to the beginning, you know, the beginning of Eyecelerator was really Jim and I, and Jim is just a legend in ophthalmology. He's one of my best friends. He's just a great person to know. And we were sitting down one day, we conceived, Jim and I, of the idea of Eyecelerator and how great it would be to have a business meeting with ophthalmology. And we sat down and we brainstormed about it, and to Steve Spear's credit, we went to Steve, and Steve embraced the idea. And then Steve went to David Park, and David Park embraced it equally. And then from there, Gil Kleiman, became the lead. We needed a full-time person who could do this. And this is where we are today. And let's talk about industry and ophthalmology. Virtually every major advance in ophthalmology, I think of phacoemulsification, intraocular lenses, the YAG, excimer, femtosecond laser, and most pharmaceutical agents have been developed, refined, and brought to market through a close relationship between industry and ophthalmologists. This intellectual synergy should be rejoiced, embraced, and fostered with our patients as the ultimate beneficiaries. This is the heart and soul of Eyecelerator. The two most important organizations in ophthalmology, the AAO and ASCRS, standing side by side, collaborating with our colleagues in the industry, embracing innovation, research, and refining the future of eye care. On behalf of all the ophthalmologists and all of our patients, we thank you for your commitment to our profession. We rejoice in you being here. We look forward to an extraordinary Eyecelerator. Jim and I have worked with a lot of our colleagues. We have some amazing panels today. I think this is going to be an incredible meeting. Jim.
Thanks, Eric. Let's give Eric a big round of applause. So Eric said that he and I kind of got together on this. He didn't exactly tell you where we were. We were at a bar. So you can imagine that's how the agenda was developed.
That was assumed. Everyone assumed that.
Everybody just assumed that. And there's no truth to the rumor that Eric and I were separated at birth either, by the way. As you can tell, Eric's a little taller. But I do want to thank all of you, and I want to echo what Eric said. It's been a joy to work with Eric on this program, but we're truly better when we do collaborate. You know, walking through that hall and seeing so many of you either fist pumping, I like to hug, just even saying hi is really just great to be back. And it just gets the whole scientific and medical community together. In fact, our ability to be back together and the togetherness is more than just a series of talks that you're going to hear about. We hear and we know that just the ability to facilitate a discussion outside the hall during the breaks is also meaningful to you. And so I think it's even more meaningful today because of what we've been able to get together on. I was just looking at the recent MarketScope report, and it showed that global ophthalmic deals totaled $1.2 billion in Q2 2021. And in the old days, that would have been predominantly mostly pharma. But pharma was 67% and device was 33%. So really, you can start to see the energy that's being created, and I know each and every one of you today is looking forward to hearing about that. And it's critical that we get together. And yeah, we need ophthalmologists and we need people with big, exciting ideas, and you're going to hear from industry. But I think at the end of the idea here is that isolation can only go so far. And so being my 44th year in this industry, it's been living and meeting with the great Dr. Eric Donenfeld in the OR, seeing him, having the hallway conversation. There is absolutely no substitute for that. And so that's why we're excited today to be here. And if you've seen, we've got an unbelievable round of speakers. Now, I've been given the task by our boss, Krista, to make sure you all understand the agenda. So you can see the important role I have here. Eric comes up with the brilliant ideas. I'm the agenda taskmaster. So you hopefully have your app downloaded. And for the many people that have worked with me realize I have no idea how to do that. So if you need somebody, do not come to me and ask you how to download an app. And all of those people are acknowledging that right now as we speak. But if you look at your agenda, I want to make, there is one little tricky that I know people like Tom Mitra will have a problem with. Sorry, Tommy. On your agenda at the break, you see that we actually have two different groups. You can come back here and hear the great Dr. Holland with his panel, or you can go to my left, where we will have Gil leading the next generation showcase of technologies. So we're giving you a choice. So I know, like Tom Frinzi is probably at a quandary right now, not knowing where he wants to go. So Tom, I'll be more than happy to help you on deciding where you can go. And you can figure out what that means later. Really, thank you. It's been a lot of joy to work with you, Eric. It's been a bunch of laughs, and it's really fun to be here. And I want to thank each and every one of you for taking time out of your day. So thank you.
Applause. And Jim, you mentioned it, but I want a special round of Krista was unbelievable organizing this. Krista from ASCRS. Krista, wherever you are, thank you. You were extraordinary. So a round of applause for Krista.